Hey, it's Ryan with this week's Mille Lacs Fishing Report. We're edging up to mid-July and we've had a pretty good bite overall this season. Get started with the muskies. I've heard some good things over the last couple weeks. I haven't been doing a lot myself. Most of the fishing that I've been doing has been for smallmouth and walleye. I have more musky coming up here shortly, so I'll be getting back on the water for them pretty quick. But the people that I've been talking to have been doing pretty well. I've heard of fish being boated out here, some stuff in the upper 40s. I've also talked to some guys that have had some missed opportunities, which is all too common with the muskies, but quite a few follows overall. So far this season, it's been pretty good. I'm hearing a lot of good things. There's a few things that I would focus on over the next few weeks, actually over the next couple of months here throughout the midsummer, and that the main one is going to be deep weed edges. Wherever you can find cabbage in that 12 feet of water, if you can find it deeper than that, that's all the better, but cabbage in that 12 foot of water range is going to be best. Good green cabbage, 12 feet of water. A lot of times you're going to find more and more of that popping up in the main lake on the north end and other areas, but the deeper cabbage lines are going to hold fish throughout the rest of the summer. There's a few different techniques that work well. One of the standard go-tos out here is just going to be big bucktails. Big double tens are always a go-to on this lake. The way that I kind of break it down is on a darker day, a cloudier day, such as overcast like we have behind me, or during low light periods, I go with a darker bait or a more natural looking bait. If I'm fishing on a bright sunny day, midsummer, I'm gonna go with something very bright, very gaudy, maybe something with a lot of chartreuse in it and just very loud colors. So bright colors on bright days, darker colors on darker days. Those are kind of the two directions I go with the bucktails. Other baits that work really well are topwaters. Topwaters can work under a variety of conditions for muskies. Oftentimes they're associated with low light, such as morning or evening, but topwaters can work really well during cloudy days. Topwaters also work really well on windy days. So even if it's the middle of the day, a topwater such as a walk the dog or a plopper style topwater worked on a windy day or during low light conditions is an excellent way to not only catch muskies, but they also catch big fish as well. Another one of my favorites out here, and I talk about it a lot, is a glide bait. And the reason I like a glide bait so much is even on days where you don't get bit on them, a lot of times you just see a lot of action on them. They really provoke lethargic fish to come up and look at it. They like to see what's going on. You throw a glide bait, a big wide wobbling glide bait, a big magnum size 9-inch glide bait, fish got to see what's going on. They see that coming over the weed edge, they see it coming by, they got to come up and take a look at it. And even if they don't bite it, it's going to clue you in to where that fish is hanging out. So you can come back to that fish later on, whether it's on a moon phase or whether it's sunrise or sunset, or whether you simply come back and throw a different bait by it. A glide bait is a great way to get a fish to reveal itself. Moving on to the walleyes, the walleye bite has been a little bit of a roller coaster, mostly good, mostly ups, just a couple downs we've had over the last couple weeks. We've had some excellent walleye fishing out here a number of different ways. There are still fish up in the shallows. Very recently I was still catching fish in 12 feet of water in the middle of the day on a calm sunny day, throwing bobbers and leeches, using the live sonar, pitching out there, seeing fish, putting the leech above their nose, they come up and hit it. It's been working well for me. But when it's a little bit windier out, sometimes it's tougher to get on that because it's harder to line things up. So with a little bit of wind, what I've been doing is moving out a little bit deeper. I've been fishing a lot of gravel piles, I've been fishing a lot of mud flats, and I've been doing really well out there during the day. Oftentimes during the daytime, I prefer the mud flats. A lot of times the edges of the mud flats isolate fish a little bit better than the gravel bars do, so I can find the edge of a mud flat, whether there's a deep break, a sharp break on it where you have these erosions running down, or whether it's the tip of a point on a mud flat. Things seem to be isolated into smaller areas there, so it's a little easier for me to position my bobbers on certain spots. So oftentimes I opt for those during the middle of the day. In the evening time, the gravel bars work really well for the bobber fishing. And the reason is a lot of times the fish will go right up on top of the gravel bar, they'll go to the high spot, or else they'll find the rocks. Sometimes you'll find scattered rock piles or loosely scattered rocks on top of the gravel bars. those a lot of times are the sweet spots for the evening bite. So bobbering up on there in the evening can be really good. In the evening on the mud flats, I just stick to the points, fish the points in the evenings on the flats. It's a great way to catch fish. We've been catching a lot of slot fish out here on Mille Lacs. We've been getting them most days. So there's definitely fish to be had for food out here. When we're fishing the walleyes, especially on the flats, we're also occasionally getting into some jumbo perch, so we get some bonus fillets there. So overall, it's been good. Something else that's been working well during the day is just a Lindy rig and a leech, fishing the edges of the flats with a Lindy rig and a leech. Some days when the bobbers just aren't getting them midday, we're able to hover over the top of them with a Lindy rig and a leech a little bit easier. Long snell, 9-foot snell, 3/8 ounce weight, nice big leech, a jumbo leech on there. Held right in front of that fish's nose is a great way to get fish to eat, even when they're a little bit off. When going to the gravel bars during the middle of the day, a lot of times you can fish that mud to gravel transition, and you'll see that in about 28-30 feet of water. You'll see where the bottom's a little bit softer and then it gets a little bit harder. That's where you want to be focusing your attention. What's going to continue working well here over the next couple weeks is simply going to be a spinner and a crawler. Working those mud to gravel transitions in that 28 to 30 feet of water at about 1.2, 1.5 miles an hour with a spinner and a crawler, a small spinner blade, is a great way to cover water and catch aggressive fish on the gravel during the day. And lastly, the smallmouth. Smallmouth bite remains pretty good overall. We're definitely into midsummer patterns. You know, it's not springtime anymore, but we're catching fish out here. We're getting pretty good numbers on some days. We're getting some big fish still too as well. So there's a lot of good opportunities for the smallmouth. The cool thing about fishing midsummer Mille Lacs smallmouth is the bite is very consistent. Generally, you know what you're gonna get. You're gonna have good days out here, good evenings. You're gonna catch some fish. You always got a chance at a trophy out here. We've been boating some fish over 5 lately, so we've been having some really good days. We're definitely into our midsummer patterns, and what's been working best for me has been finding large rock structure, which is seems like always the case with smallmouth. But wherever I can find large boulders, large rock spines, break lines, rock to gravel transitions, these breaks where you have large rock on that transition, anything with large rock on it that's just a little bit different seems to really shine throughout the summertime for smallmouth. I focus on 12 feet of water just throughout the season. 12 feet of water is always a great starting point out here. I've been catching fish a little bit deeper than that. When I start getting real deep though, over 20 feet of water, I just haven't been doing very well out there. So occasionally I'm getting fish out there. I keep checking on it, but I haven't had a great day out there yet. So I'd say there's still a lot of fish in that 12 foot of water range, give or take a couple feet. As far as techniques, there's a few go-tos. The number one is going to be the Ned rig, but any style of bottom dragging bait, such as a little jig worm or a tube, a smaller tube like a 2.5-inch tube, any of those in green pumpkin, drug on the bottom, worked really slow, let them fall on slack line, make long casts, let them fall on slack line, then drag them slowly on the bottom. That's the number one go-to method of catching smallmouth out here throughout the summer. Other go-tos for me are going to be topwaters. Whenever the conditions are right for a topwater, whether it be morning, evening, low light, calmer conditions, those are always good times to throw topwaters. They catch big fish. Another time to fish topwaters is simply when you see fish coming up to the surface. Whenever you see smallmouth surfacing around you, it's always a great time to just pull out a topwater and give it a try. Sometimes you'll find that it might not catch the most fish that day, but it definitely will catch the biggest fish oftentimes. Another bait that I like to use out here throughout the rest of the summer, and it'll get better as you get later into the summer, is a spy bait. Oftentimes what I find is when I see fish coming up to the surface and they simply won't hit a topwater, that's when I pull out a spy bait. And what I do is I cast it out and I reel it with my rod tip high, and I keep that bait near the surface, but I try to go as slow as I can near the surface. And fish just react very well to that bait. Most days it doesn't crack the code for them. It's not that big of a difference maker, but every once in a while it's just on fire and there's nothing else that can touch it. So the spy bait is always something to keep kind of handy and just kind of look for the right conditions. And when things look right for it, when they're calmer and there's fish surfacing and they're not hitting a topwater, Zip that spy bait out there, reel it slow, keep it high. Oftentimes you'll find that there's a day here and there where it's on fire. So hopefully these tips help you out, and have a great weekend. Good luck fishing.